Okay, hello everyone. All right, so the next program in chapter 5 is automobile cost. Write a program that asks the user to enter the monthly cost for the following expenses incurred from operating his or her automobile: loan payment, insurance, gas, oil, tires, and maintenance. The program should then display the total monthly cost of these expenses and the total annual cost of these expenses. All right, so basically we're going to write a program that is going to ask the user to enter the monthly cost for loan payment. Now these are all monthly costs for loan payment, insurance, gas, oil, tires, and maintenance. So basically, how much are you paying for your loan payment every month? How much are you paying for insurance every month? How much are you paying for gas, oil, tires, and maintenance every month? Then the program is going to display the total monthly cost of all these expenses. So basically, in a month, how much expenses, or basically, what's your total expenses for the month? When you add all these expenses together, what's your total for the month? And then the program is going to basically calculate how much you're paying every year. Annual cost of these expenses, basically your monthly cost times 12. But we're going to go ahead and create functions to do these, because since chapter 5 is all about functions. Okay, so first of all, it says write a program that asks the user to enter the monthly cost for the following. So let's see. So let's go ahead and create a function that is going to ask for expenses. Right now, we can go ahead and create separate function that's going to ask for, let's say, the loan payment. Create another function to ask for insurance. Create another function to ask for gas. You can do that. That's fine. But let's go ahead and create one function that's going to ask for all of these values and then return them separately. In Python, we can go ahead and return multiple values. So let's do that. And then we'll create separate functions to calculate the monthly expenses and then the annual expenses. So let's go ahead and create a function called ask for expenses, right? A function called ask for expenses that is going to ask for the expenses for all these expenses. So let's go ahead and create a function called, let's define a function called ask for expenses. And ask for expenses is not going to accept any argument, so I'm not going to go ahead and define any parameters. But ask for expenses is going to ask the user for the expenses. So basically, I'm going to use the input function to ask the user for expenses. So I'm basically going to say, please enter. Well, first of all, I'm going to do them separately, right, and then store the result in separate variables in the same function. So the first thing I want to ask for is how much expenses they are paying for, or they have for loan payments. So basically, I'm going to ask for how much do you pay for your loan? How much do you pay for your loan every month? Now these are monthly expenses, so we know that each question is basically what we're asking them is for the month. But let's just add every month so we can see. So put a colon there and a space. So basically, the input function takes an argument, right? This input function is going to ask the user, how much do you pay for your loan every month? And it's going to pop up some kind of text box and allow the user to enter a response. Now, whatever the user types, in this case, we're asking the user to enter the loan every month. It's going to be an amount. It's going to be a monetary value, like let's say $20.50, right? Or $50. It's going to be a number. The input function, the way it works is whatever you type into whatever the user types is going to be returned as a string instead of a number. So if the user enters, let's say, $100, that $100 is not going to be returned as a number by the input function. It's going to be returned as a string. But we can't use strings in calculations, in math calculations, the way we want to use it in this program. So we have to find a way to convert whatever the user has typed, which is being returned as a string, to a number. In this case, we want to go ahead and convert that string to a float, because the user can go ahead and type, let's say, 20.50 cent, 21.20 cent, or $21.20. So we have to go ahead and convert everything the user has typed to a float. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and call the float function, which is basically going to convert everything that the user has typed into a float. I'm surrounding whatever the user has typed, everything the user has typed with parentheses and calling the float function. So float surrounding everything the user has typed with parentheses. Now when I do that, it's going to return whatever the user has typed converted to a float. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable called loan, let's say monthly loan payment. I'm going to create a variable called monthly loan payment and set it equal to whatever the user has typed for loan payment converted to a float. Now this line over here is like a guideline for me to try to keep 80 characters on a line. 80 characters on a line, right? Now Python is like a Python standard to keep 80 characters on a line, so I want to stick by that standard, and that's why I have this line here to guide me. So I'm going to break this line into two, and I'm going to break it somewhere around here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close the string, concatenate it with the beginning of this new string, and then break it. I'm going to break it somewhere here. Before you break any line in Python, you have to type in the backslash before breaking it. So I hit enter and I've broken it. It's the same statement but then broken into two lines. So now I'll have my monthly loan payment stored over here. Then the next thing I want to ask the user is the insurance. So I'm basically going to copy the same statement, repeat it in the same function, because this function is asking for expenses, right? So the next thing I want to basically display is I'm going to ask for how much do you pay for your insurance every month. So I'm going to change this to insurance every month. Now this is exceeding it, so I'll have to fix it. Let's go ahead and close it somewhere around here and concatenate it with, well, actually, you know what, let's break this down here, bring this up to join this, remove this quotation. Actually, we'll break it somewhere here, concatenate it with a backslash this way. Okay, so this string concatenated with the string. How much do you pay for your insurance every month? And then whatever the user type is going to be stored in a variable that we have to declare called, let's say, loan payment. No, it's called monthly insurance payment, because we're asking for insurance. Okay, so now the next thing we want to ask for is, I'm going to basically copy the same statement. The next thing we want to ask for is the gas payment. So how much do you pay for your gas every month? And then now we're going to change this to monthly gas payment. The next thing we want to ask for is the oil payment. How much do you pay for your oil every month? And change this variable to monthly oil payment. Then the last thing is, actually not last but one, tires. So how much do you pay for your tires every month? And then changes to monthly tire payment or tire payment. The last thing we're going to ask for now is the maintenance. How much do you pay for your maintenance? For maintenance every month. Then I'm going to go ahead and store it in monthly maintenance payments. Now, like I said, you can create separate functions that ask for these separate items, but I'm creating one function to ask for all of these. We'll have them stored here, and we're going to return all of them. We can return multiple values in Python. So over here now, I'm going to go ahead and return all these values. Starting from the first all the way down to the last. So I'm going to say return monthly loan payment. Go ahead and copy this, comma. The second thing I want to basically just return. Basically, I'm returning all these values separated by space. So return the monthly loan payment, return the monthly insurance payment, return the monthly gas payment. I'm going to put the comma and break it somewhere around here. Before I break it, I'm going to type in a backslash, hit enter. Return the monthly oil payment. Return the monthly tire payment. Oops. Let's put it here. Okay. For some reason. All right, monthly tire payment. And then the last one is return monthly maintenance payment. Okay, so now we have this function asking for all these items and then returning all the items. All right. So let's go ahead and call this function. Okay, ask for expenses. Now we know ask for expenses. Okay, is going to basically return all these values, but it's going to return them also in the same manner. In the same manner you are returning it. It's going to start returning this, and then this. Start returning this, and then this. Basically, it's going to return it accordingly, based on how we returned it. So if I'm receiving it, I also have to create variables that are going to follow the same format. Create variables. The first variable I put here is going to store the monthly loan payment. The second variable I put is going to store this. The third variable I put is going to store the third item that's being returned. So first of all, the first thing I want to store is the monthly loan payment. So I'm going to create a variable outside of this function to start storing the value. So I'm going to say loan payment. I'm just going to go ahead and create a loan payment. And this is just a variable outside of the function. So loan payment is going to hold this value. Let's see. Insurance payment is going to hold the monthly insurance payment. Now the monthly gas payment. So monthly gas, let's just say gas payment, is going to hold this value. Oil payment, a variable oil payment, is going to hold this value. So basically they are going to be returned in that same order. Tire payment is going to hold this value, and then maintenance payment. Now I want to break it somewhere around here. Before I break it, I type in the backslash and hit enter. So now I'll have, when I call this ask for expenses, it's going to store all these values in these variables. And then now I can go ahead and create the other methods. So for, the other functions. The same, pretty much the same, very similar functions. Okay, functions. So over here it says the program should then display the total monthly cost of these expenses. Okay, now the total monthly cost is basically going to be all these expenses added together. So I'm going to go ahead and create a function called calculate total monthly expenses, right? Or basically, let's see that the total, calculate the total monthly cost of, okay, so total monthly expenses. That's how I'm going to define the function. So I'm going to go ahead and define, we can do it up here before we even start calling it. So let's go ahead and define that function here. So define calculate total monthly expenses. And we know total monthly expenses. Let's see. Actually, it's not supposed to be defined. It's supposed to be DEF. I don't know why I typed in define. I'm sorry. Because I was saying define. So DEF, calculate total monthly expenses. To calculate the total monthly expenses, it's going to need some argument, right? So I'm going to go ahead and specify some parameters. Now the argument it's going to need are these arguments, so that it can add them all together and calculate the total monthly expenses. So I'm going to pass all of them in. Well, first of all, this function is going to, I'm now defining it. Okay, I'm defining it. I'm not calling it now. I'm defining how it's going to work. So I'm defining placeholders for, for the arguments that are going to be passed into this function when it's called. So the first thing it's going to need is loan payment. Or let's just go ahead and say, because since the total monthly expenses is just adding all the expenses together, and we know there are how many expenses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can just create placeholders to hold those values. Okay, so I'm now defining the parameters. I'm going to say payment 1, payment 2, payment 3, all the way to 6. Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, all the way to 6. Break it somewhere around here. All right, and once this function receives these values, in the function it's going to go ahead and create a variable call it monthly. Let's say total monthly expenses. And total monthly expenses is basically going to store all the expenses that are given to this function added together. So payment 1 plus payment 2 plus payment 3 plus payment 4 plus payment 5 plus payment 6. Okay, I'm going to break this line somewhere here by typing a backslash and hit enter. And then once we are done calculating the total monthly expenses, let's go ahead and return it. So return total monthly expenses. All right, so now after we've basically asked for these values, now we can go ahead and call it here, and call the calculate total monthly expenses. After we've asked for these values, you can go ahead and do that. But before that, let's go ahead and create the other function, because over here the question said the program should then display the total monthly cost. Let's see. Let's change this name to, instead of calculate total monthly expenses, let's change it to calculate total monthly cost, right? Total monthly cost. Let's just call it that way because that's what the question says. Total monthly cost. Let's also change this variable to total monthly cost, because that's what it really is. And then change this also to total monthly cost. All right, so now let's go ahead and define the other function, because over here it said the program should display the total monthly cost of these expenses and the total annual cost of these expenses. So now let's go ahead and create something similar here. Okay, it's going to be, we're going to go ahead and define a function, call it calculate total annual cost. It's basically going to be how much you pay for a month times 12 times how many months are in a year. So calculate total annual cost is not going, it's going to receive something. It's going to, it would want to know the total monthly cost. It would want to know how much you're paying for each month, the total expenses you're paying for each month. So it would need the monthly, it would need the total monthly cost, right? And in the calculate total annual cost, what we want to do is we want to multiply the total monthly cost by 12. How many months are in a year, to get how many, or how much we have to pay, or how much the person is paying for in a year. So in that function, I'm going to go ahead and create a variable called a variable called annual or total annual cost. And total annual cost is going to be equal to the total monthly cost that was given to us here times how many months are in a year, which is 12. Once we are done calculating the total annual cost, let's go ahead and return the total annual cost so we can use it. Whatever statement that called this function can use it. All right, so over here, before this, let's go ahead and create a main method, right? A main method which is going to, it's basically going to be a function. We're defining a main method, and the main method is basically the function that is called first when the program runs. It's supposed to be called first when the program runs. Okay, the function that we normally call first. We don't do it ourselves. It's called automatically when In most programs, it's called automatically when you start to program. But in Python over here, we're going to call it explicitly. We're going to call it ourselves. But first of all, let's define it. That's where our program is going to run. That's where we're going to test our methods and everything. That's where we're going to write our program in main. The main method is the method that's supposed to, or the function that's supposed to run when the program starts. So let's go ahead and call this method in main, right? So we are calling ask for expenses, and ask for expenses is returning all these values, and we are using these variables to store the values that are being returned. Once we have these values, we can go ahead and call the calculate total monthly cost function. And we know that the calculate total monthly cost function needs 5 arguments. It needs 6 arguments, or 6 payments. Payment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the payments are basically going to be all these payments here: the loan payment, insurance payment, all the way up to maintenance payment. So the first argument is going to be the loan payment. Second argument is going to be insurance payment. Basically, we are putting all the payments in here. Fourth argument, oil payments. Fifth argument. Fifth argument is here, and then the sixth argument is here. Break it somewhere around here. Hit enter. Type a backslash and hit enter. So calculate total monthly cost is basically taking all these arguments, adding it all up, and it's going to return it. It's going to return the total annual cost. So once it returns it, we need a place to store it, right? So I'm going to create a variable in main, and I'm going to call it total monthly cost. It doesn't matter if the name is the same as the function. It doesn't matter. Actually, it's not the same as the function. The function is called calculate total monthly cost. It doesn't matter if the name in this function is the same as the name in this function. So let me just finish this here. It doesn't matter if this name is the same as this name, because actually this variable is only visible in this method. This variable here is only visible in the main method. They don't see each other. These two functions don't see each other. Okay, so you can go ahead and declare a variable with the same name here. It's only going to be visible here, and this variable is only going to be visible here. They're like twins, right? They are not the same person, but then they look identical. Okay, so it's not going to be a problem to name it something that's in another method or another function. All right, so now I have to break it again. So I'll break it somewhere here, and then pull this up. Actually, no. Pull this maybe here a little bit. And I think we're fine. All right. Let's just adjust this a little bit. Break it somewhere here. Okay.